Hey guys, what's going on? ProfessorSnipe here. Today we got a pretty cool SMG to review. It's the AKS-74U. The AKS-74U is a Soviet carbine, which was developed from the AKS-74 assault rifle, which itself was a variant of the AK-47. The AKS is basically an AK-47 with a folding stock and a shorter barrel. It shoots the same ammo as the AK-47, so you would expect great damage but less accuracy. In Battlefield Play for Free, the AKS-74U translates properly. It is an SMG unlocked at level 18, which is available for the engineer class. The looks of the guns are always positive for the Soviet weapons, because they have a nice coloring to it. Normally they always have a nice wooden finish and it always looks great. The sound the weapon makes is pretty normal, I don't mind it and I don't have comments about it. The iron sights of the AKS aren't my favorites. I do realize its potential and its advantages compared to the other iron sights, because it's pretty clear, but combined with the recoil and the deviation, I don't find it that nice. The same could be said for the A91 assault rifle that I reviewed earlier before. Lovely looking iron sights, but poor performance. And because of the same thing, recoil and deviation, but we'll all talk about that later. First, let's go through some simple stats. You get 22 bullets per magazine, which is pretty odd. I wouldn't give it full points because most SMGs have 24 and 25 bullets, some of them have 20, so this can be in the middle. Like I said, it doesn't get the most points. You get 4 mags, which totals up to 88 bullets, which is also shy compared to the other weapons with more ammo. The reload time of the AKS is 4 seconds, which is alright. I wouldn't call it the best because weapons like the MP7 and the MTAR completely dominates the AKS, but looking back, the MP5 has a 4.8 reload time, making the AKS have an average reload time. The projectile velocity is 500 meters per second, which shouldn't really matter that much to the engineer class, so I wouldn't really class it as an important stat. The rate of fire of the AKS-74U is 450 rounds per minute, which is pretty bad. It's the slowest with the 9A91. This is extremely important for an SMG, considering that it's meant to be a CQC weapon. If you have slow rate of fire, that just defies the whole purpose of everything, making it not as good as close range, which is meant to be its strong points. However, there's always a catch for slow rate of fire, and in this case, it's its damage. I'm going to put up the damage and range table on screen for you guys to look at while I analyze it. The close range damage for the AKS is 28 to 30, which is damn right higher than most assault rifles. It has the best damage in the SMG class. The medium damage is also pretty good. And lastly, the long range damage is alright, but of course I wouldn't even bother using any SMG at long range. Before I move on, I need you guys to look at the range. That brings down everything because the AKS has horrible range. It's really bad. 0 to 10 meters per CQC is horrible. That means that when you reach 11 meters, you can't even deal those 30 damage models anymore. I would say that most encounters are around 15 to 20 meters. It also depends on the map though, but losing that amazing CQC damage because of poor range is a huge turnoff for the AKS-74U. There are some weapons that have lower damage but longer range that can actually hit higher than the AKS because it has high damage but really low range. Despite the awesome damage, it's still a limited gun. Now we're moving on to deviation and recoil. You might have guessed it already, it's also not the best. Deviation is damn right horrible. It's probably the worst in class, maybe a tiny bit better than the PP2000 when aimed down sight, but other than that, it sucks. It's a really inaccurate gun. The recoil is a bit worse than average, which also disappoints. It doesn't have the most significant upwards recoil, because there are a lot of weapons that have more vertical recoil, but the horizontal recoil has a problem. It's not as bad if you aim down sight, because the MP7 for example has horrible horizontal recoil, but the AKS is pretty close to it. The hipfire is also pretty bad because of the recoil, notably on the sides. All in all, it's really not the most accurate weapon. Despite not having the worst recoil, the deviation just screws everything up. It's not the hardest to control, but it's inaccurate. Now let's give you some tips on the AKS. First of all, I wouldn't stick to the main roads. Don't go where everybody goes. Take a different route. Try to flank the enemy instead. It's sad because at all ranges, you have a disadvantage. So you need that element of surprise and that element of flanking by your side. It really can't compete that well in front of the top tier weapons, so avoid them by striking their backs. Another tip is don't fire unless the enemy is in the clear. A lot of enemies hide in narrow passages or small little alleys, and it's hard to hit them. The AKS is not good at that. The bullets are way too inaccurate. Even if he doesn't see you, don't take the shot. Get a clearer shot at him, get closer, do what you gotta do. If you do shoot and you're not in the clear, he'll start knowing where you are and you'll lose your element of surprise and your element of flanking. Now let's talk about the attachments I'd run on this thing. For the barrel, it's not a surprise that I need to upgrade that CQC range. That's why I'd go for the close-in barrel. That gives you a 0 to 20 close range, which is much better than a 0 to 10. It also upgrades your medium range to 20 to 30. For the ammo, I would go for the casket mags. I know that the damage is already really high. but I need more ammo. The casket mags will give you 38 bullets per magazine, and combined with a slower rate of fire, that means less reload, more flanking, more killing. For the stock, I'd normally go with a full-on deviation stock, so something like the balance stock. I know that it's easier to control recoil than deviation for most people, so reducing the deviation with the balance stock is a really good option. However, certain people will argue that the recoil is still pretty higher on the sides, so for that reason I would suggest the stabilized for tiny deviation reduction, but huge horizontal recoil reduction. I still think that the balance stock is better than the stabilized. For your sights, I would really suggest the red dot sight. I find it easier to use than the hollow, the desert hollow, and even the M145. It's clearer and easier to track your enemy. I wouldn't want to mess with people straight up, so flanking on any map is the best choice. I see flankers using this gun. The AKS might not have the most glorious stats. Its damage is amazing, but it doesn't live up to its name because of inaccuracy and slow rate of fire. However, it still has a really high firepower, and in the right hands, with the right setup and the right playstyle, it's deadly. It is a pretty weird SMG. It's a big contrast from low damage and accuracy. This weapon gets a 7 out of 10. Well, that's it for me today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, please leave a like and a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the AKS-74U. My name is ProfessorSnipe. See you next time, and thanks for watching.